Cameron Smith, discuss.
Well, I think that's, I guess the pressing point of that comment made by Brandy was the last bit there where he says, if Craig Fitzgibbon says, look, I'm going to leave you out of our team this week, then I think that goes into next year as well. That's pretty much saying you're not our best option to run this footy side. Personally, I think he needs to play again. Now, look, Nicho Hynes, he's not the first, and he won't be the last number 7 to have a quiet game in a semi-final. You know, some of the great number 7s, they've all had quiet games in semis and not got the job done for their footy side. You know, Cooper Cronk, Andrew Johns, Jonathan Thurston, Sean Johnson, all of these players throughout their career, I'm sure, particularly early on, right? So if you think of Nicho Hynes, he started his career at the Melbourne Storm where he was a bit of a utility, wasn't he? Played 5'8", played a little bit of halfback, played mostly fullback when Pappenhausen was injured, and you know, played strongly. He's gone to Cronulla to run a football side, so he's only really into his third season now as a number 7. So if you look back at when those guys first started their careers, you know, they weren't out there dominating every game in their third year as a number 7. So I think we need to cut him a little bit of slack for what happened the other day. Like, he's not the only guy that underperformed for the Sharkies. I thought they had a really, really clumsy opening 40 minutes as a footy side. Now I know the guy playing halfback, the guy wearing the number 7 jersey, he's going to cop the brunt of the the discussions post match and why the team underperformed. But I think you give him another go. Although in saying that, I think if it's not happening for them, particularly early, Craig Fitzgibbon may need to make the decision to put Dan Atkinson on there.
Cam, we know he can play. I mean, Dally-M medalist, but when does it start to add up? The fact that they've lost 7 straight finals, and when Nicho is in the conversation, picked for New South Wales, dropped straight away. When does the big game conversation go? Well, I mean, it's happening now, but when do you start cutting some slack around that? I can understand last weekend in isolation.
Yep.
But it's starting to mount up, isn't it?
Well, if they fail again this week, well, that's when big questions need to be asked, I think. So you go back a couple of years ago, they go out in straight sets. Same last year, they struggled in the finals, and now they had a big score put on them against Melbourne Storm. To be honest, I think anyone bar, say, Penrith playing against Melbourne Storm last week, I think they have a bit of a score put on them anyway.
Yes.
Right? So they were very good. Let's take that into account. You know, we can't just dismiss the opposition and how well they played. But if they can't get the job done this week, and if again, Nicho plays at a standard that's below his best, which we know he can play at, well, I think that's when the pressure starts to mount. But I think, I think he gets an opportunity. He gets an opportunity to wear that number 7 jersey again and go out there and play and execute the game plan that they practiced. You know, listening to Craig Fitzgibbon in his post-match presser, I could see the frustration in his face and in his voice. I could hear it in his voice that they didn't play the way they planned. Now, that may have come down to the way Melbourne Storm matched up against them and how they minimised the way they could play. But I just think they were well below their best, Cronulla.
What do you think it is, Smithy, with Nicho?
Well,
the game's there. Is it in his mind?
Well, it has to be heels. It's not a skill-based thing. It's not a physical thing. I think it may just be able to, at the moment, he's not really dealing with the pressure at all or the expectation. Maybe it's the expectation of him going down there and getting a win for a footy side. For those guys that have done so well in their career, like the names I just mentioned before, what their greatest, or one of their greatest skills is not just their ability to go out and play football on the weekend. It's their ability to put aside any expectation, external expectation, and talk about themselves around how they're going to perform and the result they're going to get for their footy side, and just go and play football. That's as a greater ability as it is to go out and showcase your skills in those 80 minutes of football. Maybe that's what Nicho is struggling with at the moment. Once he's able to get past that, then I'm sure we'll go out. We'll be able to see him in these big matches go out and perform like we see him perform in regular games during the year.
That's why I don't agree necessarily with if we bench him this week, if we use him off the bench this week,
Wow.
it has an influence on next year. Because you can get that right. In the off season, you can get him rock hard, fit, strong, and everything. Getting all those things down pat, and give him every chance to have that confidence again.
Heels, I'm with you. If you bench him or even leave him out this week, well, what does that do for him moving forward? I think that sends him back even further than what he is now, because clearly, he struggled a little bit after he was dropped from the New South Wales side, and it's taken him a little bit to get back from that. But if you're to leave him out of your elimination semi-final this weekend, where does that put him for next year? I think you've got to give him the opportunity to at least start the game. And as I said, if it's not going right for you, well, I think you need to make some changes throughout the match.
13 13 55 0467 736 736. The Suncorp Car Insurance open line is there for you. Direct line to Cameron Smith. Smithy, let's talk about the Cowboys because they are stampeding.
Yes.
And I feel they may be in a bit of danger if Nicho does come off the bench. He could cause a little bit of havoc around the ruck, but they are flying, aren't they?
Yeah, they're up and about, aren't they? They, I thought they played a style of footy that is a little bit different to what we've seen in those couple of blowouts that they had at the end of the year, where they put 40 points on a couple of teams that they come up against. They played a really patient style of footy, and to Newcastle's credit, I thought they started really well. It was quite an even match to begin with. Took a couple of big plays by the Cows to really get on top, but I think that probably in the back of their mind, fellas, they're probably thinking about it was a big night for Kyle Falde. Like I was up there, I called the game, and I was at the ground, and he stayed out in the field like for about an hour after the match finished, just going around thanking fans and all that sort of stuff. So like it was a pretty emotional time for him, and I'm sure all of his teammates were aware of that, and they wanted to get the win in his very final game in Townsville. He come up with a really big play to get them on the board early. And look, when they're a footy side that when they are up and about and they're defending strongly and they're getting their key position players a lot of ball, so guys like Scotty Drinkwater, Tommy did, and I thought Val had a strong game on the weekend as well. When they've got plenty of touches and they're taking on the opposition, they are as dangerous a side as any team left in the comp, the last six.
That's a good call.
So if they get their fair share of footy, and they've got no fear of going out of Sydney now. Like back in the day, like the talk was around the Cows, like travelling, they haven't got such a great record, but they've got a pretty good record away from home this year. And
wasn't the last six away from Townsville, and four of them have been in Sydney.
Yep, and what was it? Only a couple of years ago, they won that final against the Sharkies at Shark Park. This time it's going to be at Allianz. But, look, I think they'll be up for this one. I'll tell you who I was really impressed with, boys, his second stint, Jason Taumalolo.
Yeah, how good.
That was a bit of a throwback.
And then, Smithy, you mightn't have seen it, but did you see him in the dressing room on your coverage?
No.
Oh, he was upbeat. He was laughing. He was eating a whole bag of lollies, and like joking with blokes. And I've never seen that before with him.
Yeah,
it was really excellent.
Were they chewy lollies?
They looked like
snakes
the bag
or something?
was on his left. You couldn't see the bag. Yeah, like snakes, that type of thing.
And the only reason I'm saying that is
fractured
cheekbone. He's put off surgery to get that fixed. I mean, that in itself just lends to inspiring your teammates.
Well, absolutely. And he's he's been a leader there for such a long time. And obviously for him to make that decision. It shows, one, how much this team means to him, but two, like he feels as though they're a genuine chance.
One thing that annoys me about the Cowboys, Smithy, though, is a quote in the paper today, and I love the work of Reuben Cotter and Tommy Dearden as co-captains. Really good, right? But Cotter and his teammates drew a line in the sand at training a fortnight ago when they pledged to fix the defensive issues that have plagued their season and now not to bow out of the finals with a whimper. Wow. What a good idea to fix your defence. They've been going on that for 2 years, now the players decide we're going to put in.
So they play.
That annoys me. So the coaches must tear their hair out.
Oh, so they play 27 weeks and then start of finals. Righto, boys. Let's fix our defence.
Yeah. Like, oh. And it's taken 2 weeks to do it.
Well, hey, better late than never, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, like last year, they were constantly working on that. But anyway, and the Titans are the same. These sides don't quite take a long time to get their defence right, I reckon.
Before we hit a break, Cam, Cowboys, Sharks for you.
Well, I think this is going to be a real close game. Depending on how they start, I reckon. Look, I think everything being equal, if they go and both play their best game, I think Sharks just. But if they have a bit of a bumbly start like they did last week, the Sharkies, I reckon Cowboys by a bit of a score.
And I think the Cowboys have got to run the Sharks around, don't they? Those Sharks forwards aren't as fit as Cowboys forwards, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. They're a little bit more mobile pack too, I think, the Cowboys. But the Sharkies, they've got some big men.
Yeah.
Big men.
Actually, it was interesting you say that, both of you, because I heard Reece Robson speak yesterday, and he said our game plan is to keep the ball in play. Because the longer in play, the longer we can run around and wear their forwards and middles out. And that's why, and where he comes into play, darting out a dummy half. We saw it a couple of times against the Knights. And Tommy Dearden even said, he is our unsung hero, Reece Robson. So, but it was interesting to hear about keeping the ball in play. No stoppages. No stoppages.
Well, if you think of their middle forwards, like Oregon Kafusi, Toby Rudolph, then you look at big Royce Hunt, they are big men who are very damaging with the football if you're not making a move. Like if they can conserve energy, then they're very, very damaging. So I reckon, Reece Robson, he's got a great point. Just keep the ball in play, keep moving them around. I reckon the Cowboys might go down there with a bit of a mindset to use the football. So sideline, continue to make their middle forwards cover ground, fill spaces in defensive line. That's the way they'll open them up.
Smithy, we've got a few texts and calls coming in. This one from Matty Guide. Oh, our great mate Matty. He said, look, just on Nicho Hines this week and next year, isn't it about winning footy games? So if the Sharks bench or drop Nicho this week and the Sharks win and hypothetically keep winning without him, isn't the winning the goal and club first, team second mentality? Look, it doesn't mean we have to make most of the team right now. Surely you do it with Nicho in 25, it becomes a problem for them, the Sharks. So, Matty, it's a really good point. What do they do with him in 25? Razor's jumped on the open line, 13-13-55. Razor, good morning.
Morning, Ben. Morning, Hills and Cam. How you going?
Good.
You're looking good, guys, anyway. Hey, Cam, I'm going to throw a forward pass here and drop the ball, but why not do a reverse Jerome Hughes with Nicho and throw him back to full back like the Storm did with Jerome Hughes before he became a good number 7? He had a record. He had his best season at the Storm with 11 or 13 tries as the full back in that year. Why can't they do that? He's probably a better full back than Will Kennedy will be.
Yeah, it's a fair point, and it's a thought that a lot of people are tossing about at the moment, isn't it? With Nicho Hines going back to fullback. I think for this week though, it's hard just to throw him in there and tip Will Kennedy out, given the team game plan, the system. He would not have spent any time at fullback at all. Preparing with this football side, Nicho Hines. His job in this footy side since moving to the Sharks has been to play number 7. So it's not like he's at the Sharks as a utility like he was at the Melbourne Storm and trained in several different positions. Although he could fall back there and go and play a natural style of game, I think as far as game plans are concerned, it's a little bit too late in the season to go, well, listen, let's go for a Hail Mary here and we'll swap you up. We'll change the whole team and throw you back to fullback. I think that's probably something that they need to consider if they are going to consider changing positions for Nicho. I think it's got to be next year.
Razor, good shout. Thank you for the call. 13-13-55 0467 736 736 to join in Queensland Sports' biggest conversation. The other conversation started in the world of rugby league, Smithy, is the Fox, Josh Addo Carr. We'll get into Roosters Manly in a minute, but is there any coming back for him from this?
Oh, well, I don't know. You always want to give someone an opportunity to come back and be better and learn from your mistakes. There's no doubt about that. But I think, having Gus Gould as the guy running that football club at the moment, or certainly the centrepiece of the club and the face of it, and the way this has all sort of gone down. So pretty much, Josh has lied to Gus Gould, and told him a bit of a tale which wasn't correct, which wasn't entirely true. I think that would hurt Gus. I think that's something that he wouldn't really appreciate a whole heap, and also off the back of the comments that Gus made around Latrell Mitchell and that photo with the white substance, and saying, well, he pretty much come out and said, well, our club just wouldn't stand for that. We wouldn't cop that. We'd be dealing with that pretty severely. So, look, it's still up in the air. I think Gus come out last night, made some comments around Josh Addo Carr's future. He said there's still a few meetings and discussions to be had around that. But what he would be doing is the decision that he makes, or the recommendation he will make to the board of the Bulldogs, would be around certainly what's in the best interest for the club moving forward. Not so much about Josh Addo Carr the individual. It's more around the club and whether keeping Josh part of the playing squad would be a positive thing for the team. But reading between the lines and seeing some comments that he's made about other players at other clubs, I don't know. I'm sort of leaning towards Josh not being at the Dogs after this year.
Yeah, it would say so much about their standards and their culture if he was given a pass on this. And I think Gus's most telling line last night was, "Have you spoken to Josh?" No,
no,
I haven't. Not since the positive test. Like, okay.
I think he's just letting the process roll out, right? Because I think Josh Addo Carr has to deal with the integrity unit first, the NRL integrity unit, and then we'll see what comes of that, and then he'll have to sit down and speak with the Bulldogs. But I don't know. I just think that, I think Gus will have a pretty strong stance on this, particularly when, Josh had the opportunity to say, mate, look, this is what's happened.
Yeah.
This is what's happened. So, and he didn't tell the full truth. So I reckon he might act on that.
Yeah. And then I don't want him to be able to be picked up by anyone else for a set period of time either. If a club dismisses a player like that, no other club can have them, Super League or anything, for 6 months, maybe 12 months, whatever you want to say. But anyway. Hey, Smithy, do you reckon Roosters, a bit like the Sharks, will they be better for the run in a final, another finals run, and this week we might see even better than last week?
Well, you'd like to think so, Heels. I think they weren't great in the first 40 minutes. Now, I know Trent Robinson's come out and he spoke about the missed forward pass and a couple of other things and this and that, and particularly the forward pass. Okay, crucial part of the game. They were on their way back. They were 24-10 if they let that go and they go and score and kick the conversion. It's 24-16, bit of a different ball game, but where they really, forget about that call and forget about a couple of other things that he spoke about, their first half was awful. Yep. It wasn't good at all. They had multiple errors. Their discipline wasn't great, and they allowed Penrith just to control the entire game of football in the first 40 minutes. They come out with a different energy in the second half, particularly the first 10 or 15 where they went bang, bang, 2 tries in a row, got himself going again. That's what they need to concentrate on.
Yes.
Find that at the start of the game. What it looked like live was that one team turned up that had gone to another level. They'd gone to that semi-final intensity, and the other side, being the Roosters, they turned up like it was just another club game.
Yeah, okay.
And which is a strange thing, right? Because if you look at their lineup, they've got so many experienced players. Playing at this time of year, they played State of Origin football, they played Test matches. They know that you need to elevate your performances, your intensity, the physicality, the speed in which you do everything, all of your actions on the field at this time of year. Because if you don't, you're going to get stuck in the blocks like they did, and it's really, really hard to come back against sides, particularly Penrith. So I'd like to think that we're going to see a very, very different Roosters performance this weekend.
We're going to have to. How much does JWH bring with his intimidation factor? I know Luke Keary said we cannot wait to have him back, so he comes back after a 3-match suspension.
Well, he's played 2 games in 8 weeks, boys.
He'll be fresh. He'll be fresh.
He'll be very fresh. And I'll tell you what, it's a big in, isn't it? He's their most experienced player. He's played over 300 matches, and coming up against Manly, who boys, like we mentioned off the top, like how did they win it? They were bashed by the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
And they've got the shortest turnaround out of any team in the comp. They got the 6-day turnaround, and so this is going to be a very it's going to be hard for them to get up. Whereas the Roosters, they're 8 days, so they're fresh. So the mindset's got to be, hey boys, let's get out there, let's play power game early, really get stuck into their middles. They're going to be a little bit bumped and bruised and a little bit more sore than what we are. And if we can get away to a really good start, put a couple on them early, that could be lights out. They could win the game. They could win the game in the first half like Penrith did.
Yep.
There we go. Huge call.
Weekend.
Yeah. Matty Lodge Paseka up against Jared and Spencer Ling. Yeah. Hey, good stuff. Cam,
Yes.
I've just looked at the time. That has raced past that last
done.
half hour.
There we go.
Not a great regard for the clock over here.
That's right. Hey, Heels, I'm just ticking down all of my overtime, mate, throughout the year.
Don't tell him that, Benny. Don't tell him.
Hey, no, we just got to play on until the whistle's blown.
right.
Good stuff. Hey, Smithy, fantastic. We'll listen to you and Kempy for the captain's run as well.